This is without a doubt the easiest cosplay I've done for Jujutsu Kaisen in a long time. Hey! It is Romania Black, and I am being the lovely assistant to Higuruma today, his wonderful secretary, and we are on episode 10 of Jujutsu Kaisen, and I'm not very happy about that because that means we only get this week and then 2 more weeks, and then I guess the cour is over for now? Mappa, I'm used to like 24 episode seasons of Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm not used to this cour break. I'm not used to this break at all. I'm not doing well with it. I guess that will just give me more time to react to the manga and to get my cosplays ready for part 2. I guess. But we have several comments for episode 8 and 9 especially that I want to go through that you all have had some amazing comments. So thank you so much for being down in the comment section and giving some love to the reactions. I really appreciate that. I'm going to say, if you are on Patreon, thank you so much. The comments have been amazing. If you're not on Patreon, the YouTube comments have been amazing as well. Just please make sure that you give a like to this video and that you comment down below because it helps my channel. Y'all know how that goes. But with that being said, we're going to put this very hot coffee down as we dive into these comments. Before we get started with the actual episode, I'm going to be real with you all. I have had to wait to watch this episode longer than I would have liked because I've been traveling, and I got home last night and I was exhausted and I was like, no, we're not gonna try to. You can't just decide to dive into Jujutsu Kaisen when you're tired or sick, or it's just not, the energy's not gonna work. So I feel revitalized now that I've been out and about the last 4 or 5 days, and I'm ready for episode 10. So let's talk about Daya in 1997 and their comment for episode 7. They said, did you notice how quickly Megumi changed his address and pronouns for Kurara as soon as he realized she isn't the guy from JJK High? First, he changed to they because he wasn't sure what Kurara went by. Then he changed to she when he was sure. We love a respectful king. Absolutely. I'm here for Megumi. Megumi can be a little bit harsh sometimes, which we'll talk about in some of the comments later down the road here. But we love Megumi for being respectful and for just being an amazing person. Jake Collins had the only comment for episode 8 that I wanted to talk about. They said the fact that the prosecution is able to appeal a not guilty sentence is one of the biggest differences between the US and Japanese legal systems. In the US, appealing an acquittal would be seen as double jeopardy, charging someone for the same crime multiple times. And while Japan has laws against double jeopardy, apparently they have it built into the system that the prosecution does get multiple tries before it is applied. One thing that specifically stands out is that the guy, Oe, was literally caught on camera, one of the most solid alibis you can ask for, and yet he was still convicted because, quote, there is no reason to suspect anyone else. Yeah, I think that in the episode 8, it didn't dawn on me that was happening, and I was like, wait, what? But it's so crazy, and it makes sense because, as Jake Collins later says, they said, I think what makes the straw that broke the camel's back was the prosecution's laziness. Yes, I remember trying to, in the discussion, be like, break down that part of the comment. I was like, but I don't understand why. And as Higuruma notes, the prosecution has a ton of advantages over the defense. He says that's how it's supposed to work. Yet the prosecution did not use any real effort after the first trial. They simply argued with the first judge that the first judge was foolish to even consider the video evidence, as Jake puts in all caps, and the next judge agreed with them. Had they found additional evidence or something that showed Oe had a way to reach the victim in time, Higuruma would have accepted that that's simply how the law works. But instead, the prosecution simply relied on Japan's high conviction rate to do the job for them. Which, in hindsight, makes sense to why Higuruma killed the judge and the prosecutor, because they didn't even do the bare minimum of the legal system. They just relied upon how it was set up to do it for them. And that's when Higuruma lost it. But there you go. So thank you, Jake, for explaining that. Now, Midmat, episode 9, Midmat 44 says, it's interesting how Judgment knows everything about the defendant, but only makes its verdict solely off the evidence between parties, regardless of it knowing if the defendant is innocent. It chose to declare Yuji guilty and the death sentence, despite knowing it wasn't his fault, which seems to mimic the Japanese legal system, which goes back to Higuruma mentioning how justice is blind to all these outside factors. It's interesting how Higuruma's domain became the thing he hated the most. That's really interesting to me because normally you think of domain expansion as like with Sukuna, you think of it's his temple, it's his castle, his throne. You have Mahito and like the hands and everything's where he's most comfortable, most powerful. And with Gojo, it's kind of the same thing. So for Higuruma's domain to be the thing that he hates the most is very telling of how he feels about himself as a person. But yeah, that's crazy. So then, Lavi Love Love, I hope I said that right this time. They said for episode 9, Yuji this season in general just makes me feel so sad, fully blaming himself for the things he couldn't even control, even when others try to say otherwise. So far, we've got 2 people saying that he isn't at fault, each with a different perspective to the situation. I really like, there's some comparisons that break down how Yuji is viewed in terms of his actions. And so Lavi Love Love is the first one of those where they say we've got 2 people saying he isn't at fault, each with a different perspective to the situation. Yuta, whose loved one was directly affected by Sukuna, Inumaki in his arm, love that. Love the shipping part, not Inumaki losing his arm. And now Higuruma with a perspective based on actual laws. Basically, the guy whose friend he hurt doesn't blame him, and the justice system doesn't find him guilty. But yet Yuji still cannot forgive himself and continues to simmer in his unhealthy mentality. A very stubborn boy indeed. Speaking of judgment, what a cool and creepy Shikigami. Being called Judge Man and being referred to as he, but yet having a feminine voice and face, is a combination of a judge and Lady Justice herself. And the second verdict scene, I wonder if judges can be, before we get to that, I wonder if judges in Japan can be women, because in the US they can be women. One of my friend's sister is a judge. So, interesting. And the second verdict scene, the blood could be easily attributed to stitched eyes being forced open, yet the way it pours out of the bottom makes it look like tears. Knowing Judge Men knows everything about the people inside the domain, are they crying at Yuji's proclamation of guilt because they know he's actually innocent? Judge Man is part of Higuruma's technique after all, and Higuruma's very serious about defending the innocent. I don't know. Somebody was saying it in the comments as if it was fact that Judge Men was crying because they knew Yuji was innocent. And I'm like, well, let's not treat things as fact if we don't know for sure, as I am, Higuruma's assistant. But I do think that's a very big possibility. And knowing that they knew of the innocence, I think it's all tied together in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Then we have, along with that, I want to talk about with what Lavi Love Love said. With episode 9, not this one, points out, in the end, Yuji was the light, and the floodlights notably turned his shadow into a sunflower. And notably, it was the first time Higuruma could not keep his eyes open. Make that what you will. I want to show you all this because, I love the shot of Higuruma with his eyes squinting. I think that that's such a good shot that he's blinded by the light of Yuji's innocence and purity, which that's been Yuji's saving grace this whole season, right? It was that with our boy, oh my God, with Karara. Hikari, it was that with him, and now it's that way with Higuruma. But yeah, the scene, it's so theatrical, it's so awesome with the desks and everything flying through the air. But yeah, you can notice now, I remember talking about the shadow in the discussion, but I didn't get that it looked like a sunflower. It does look kind of like a wilted sunflower there, which is really, really cool. I can't wait to see it in the manga. That's going to be exciting. It'll take me forever to get there this year, but we will get to the manga eventually. So that's really fun. But Not This One also says, to go with what Lavi was saying, in the chair conversation, it was also Higuruma who, for the very first time, out of everyone in the cast, simply acknowledged Yuji's feelings on the matter. I like this comparison because it is pointing out that Gege has been having this kind of chair and responsibility metaphor, and it's been slowly shaping the way Yuji has been thinking about himself, and it kind of gives a lot of credence to Higuruma and his influence on this conversation, because it says back in season 1, we started out with Nobara saying, meh, I can't afford to worry about this. I've got these chairs, you see. Toto said, well, we've got to go on, don't we? And planted the cog idea in Yuji's mind. Then Yuta says, well, I didn't know what I did, meaning like Rika, but it was me who did it, so you didn't know that you did the stuff in Shibuya, but you didn't do it, which is a nice sentiment, but it only made Yuji feel weaker and more inept. And then you have Megumi saying, well, we're not people, we're sorcerers. That kind of stuff doesn't apply to us, which is a pretty harsh statement from Megumi, but Megumi, that's what he knows because of what he's been taught by Gojo and his experience. So Megumi's not exactly a counselor. He's not exactly the person to spout the most, like, sympathetic wisdom, which is where Higuruma comes in because he can relate a lot to Yuji, whereas Megumi in that matter cannot. And Higuruma basically says yes to all the conclusions that Yuji drew. I feel bad, I'm weak, and every day it's hard to keep going, but I must because I'm supposed to be this thing that just keeps going. And Higuruma said, I understand all of that, man. I really do. And it took a toll. What do you think got me here? It's the best thing that Yuji could have heard. I'm happy that Higuruma simply said, you're innocent, you've committed no crime, instead of, quote, you're not to blame, you can't live according to the moral standards of regular people, you have to persevere, etc., etc. Yeah, it was great that Higuruma just got to the point and just said, you're fine, you didn't do anything wrong. And just left it at that. Like, for Yuji being such a straightforward character, that's what he needed to hear. 100%. So I love that. So thank you, Not This One, for that comment along with it. Now, a couple things. We're going to clarify some stuff in these last couple comments because Romania, here's the thing. Sukuna has always been kind of an enigma to me since season 1. I spent part of season 1 getting his name wrong like half the time, and I was just like, I don't want to talk about him because I'm getting his name wrong. And I feel like that has haunted me throughout this entire reaction series. Also, it's been like a good solid 3 years since we've really seen Sukuna, and your girl does not really go back and rewatch things. I have a lot on my channel to keep up with, and real life, and all that. So I'm not the best at remembering those kind of details, especially if it's something I've been like actively afraid of getting wrong. But Michael Razor 6104 had a lot of reminders about Sukuna, which I want to bring up because reading this, I was like, okay, them and Alexander Q had these comments back to back. So they were like, Sukuna cannot take over Yuji or perform any actions unless Yuji gives him permission. Yes, we know that from season 1, episode 2. It was established Yuji can suppress Sukuna. He's more like a cage than a vessel. I think that's a good thing to note. That's a good way to describe it. He's a cage more than a vessel. That's why in season 1, episode 6, Sukuna makes a pact with Yuji that when he says in chain, he can take over Yuji's body for 1 minute, and he cannot kill anyone in that 1 minute. That's all the freedom time Sukuna has, is 1 minute, which does not happen and go through in season 2, but we're going to get there. In season 2, episode 15, Kenjaku explains to Jogo that even if Yuji eats all 20 Sukuna fingers, he can still easily suppress Sukuna. The only reason Sukuna could take control back then was because he was fed 11 fingers at once. But even then, he could only take control for 5 minutes. Well, a lot of shit went down in 5 minutes. But anyway, in season 1, episode 6, Sukuna was totally fine with dying, as he had other fingers out there somewhere through which he could reincarnate at a later time. I think that's important because, again, I've talked about my theory with Sukuna and Yuji and Megumi being connected. And so I think that's an important thing to bring up. We're going to talk about it in a hot second. When Choso was about to kill Yuji in season 2, episode 13, Sukuna was like, and was going to die if Choso didn't get his memories back, which luckily he did. Sukuna literally cannot do anything to save Yuji at any point because Yuji wouldn't let him. He calls the shots, not Sukuna. Well, I will challenge that a little bit. In Shibuya for 5 minutes, Sukuna very much called the shots and killed a lot of people, which is why Yuji's in this entire sense of angst and ennui in the first place. So, yeah, going along with their comment, they're like, Sukuna was fine dying in season 1, episode 6. He only changed his decision because of his interest in Megumi. But if saving himself and Yuji is not in control, he'll simply accept death with a tinge of annoyance that he didn't get to play with Megumi. That's my whole thing. I think, based on this comment and based on reminding me about all that stuff, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, the only thing I can think of is that Sukuna is realizing that with Yuji's like the perfect vessel to contain Sukuna, and Sukuna cannot do what he wants with Yuji. Like, at the end of the day, if that, because I've been trying to mull it over, I'm like, what is the harm with Sukuna? What is the whole threat of Sukuna if Yuji can contain him? Because that seems to be Kenjaku's entire motivation at this point, is that Kenjaku has basically essentially created Yuji to be the perfect container for Sukuna, because if Yuji can contain Sukuna, even if he has all 20 fingers, then Sukuna is really just at Yuji's mercy until he gets that like 1 minute. The only thing that is kind of a scary thought is that in part of their contract, Yuji doesn't remember letting Sukuna have control. That's part of the contract. Yuji won't remember it happening until after it's done. So that's kind of the scary thing. And Alexandra Q adds on to it saying, Sukuna cannot take over Yuji's body at will. Yuji has to allow him to do it. The only 3 exceptions we've seen, which 3 exceptions is still a lot of exceptions, is immediately after he ate the first finger, which makes sense. Very, very early on when Yuji couldn't quite control his curse energy, which makes sense now, he can. And in Shibuya when he was force-fed all the fingers at once. But I don't think Yuji will be able to do that again after Shibuya. So when I was reading these comments, I was thinking, okay, well, if we think that Yuji is going to be able to contain Sukuna now, he's not going to have as many as 11 fingers ever again given to him. There's only like 5 left. So he has like 15 or 16 in him. He only has like 4 or 5 left he can ingest. If he can handle 11, then the 5's not going to do anything at this point. So if he gets all of them together and contains Sukuna, then I feel like there's not a lot of stakes with that. And I think that's Kenjaku's point, because Kenjaku is like, Sukuna is this force that could delay or disrail a lot of my plans, so I don't want him to be in the picture, so I'm going to put him inside Yuji because I know Yuji can handle him. Here's what I'm getting at. He's fascinated with Megumi. We've talked in previous episodes, my doomsday theory is that we're talking about the 3 souls together with Yaga. My theory is that Sukuna, Yuji, and Megumi are 3 souls that can all interact with one another. So at this point, my theory is the only way Sukuna is feeling like he can get away from Yuji, who can perfectly contain him, is to go over here with Megumi and be like, hey, Megumi, we're compatible, but you're not the perfect vessel that can contain me like Yuji is. I could possibly take control of you and use you. So at some point, is he going to try to get Megumi to eat one of the fingers? Because if Megumi eats one of the fingers, he can reincarnate through Megumi. And then Yuji is like, he's splitting his soul between 2 people, which the shipper in me is all about that. The shipper in me is all like, yes, please. That makes Megumi and Yuji connected, and I'm all about it. But also, that's a part of me going, I don't know how I feel about that. And then there's the idea of, would Megumi let Sukuna take over if it was to save Yuji? I don't know. So I'm just saying that Michael's comment and Alexander's comment has really put it in perspective, being like, so really the stakes are if somebody else eats a finger, then Yuji won't be the perfect vessel to contain Sukuna. That's my thoughts. Please don't spoil it. If I'm wrong, I'll be wrong. And if I'm right, I'm going to be like, look who called it, boop. So we're going to see how that goes. But yeah, we're going to just see. But anyway, so Anime Annie says, Mappa and Akutami, in relation to this, has created a Pavlovian response that anytime Itadori's top is off, imminent Sukuna appearance. But instead, they threw us all off with this one. Yeah, I really thought that Sukuna was going to appear in this last episode, but I'm not ready for Higuruma to be gone. I'm in very stark denial that he's leaving the Corps. I don't think they're going to show Higuruma for the rest of the Corps, which is very upsetting because the last 2 episodes have been amazing. So, whatever. But anyway. And then Ashwin and Popping have 2 clarification comments I want to talk about before we start. Popping says, quote, I won't become a judge, as Higuruma charges towards Yuji with a sword that's going to give him a death sentence. And quote, I've returned to my roots as he defends Yuji like a defense lawyer as he's supposed to. Absolute cinema, which I agree completely with. Love it. And then Ashwin said Higuruma had 102 points, which, yes, I went back and looked at the episode prior when we gained access to seeing the points, and he did. And he used 100 to add a rule. Then he had 2 points. He gave Yuji 1 of the points, so now they both have 1. Yeah, so the judge and the prosecutor Higuruma killed, he gave 1 of those points to Yuji so that Yuji won't have to hurt anybody for at least 19 days. And maybe they can find a way to prevent other people from dying in the meantime. So yeah, I've talked for nearly 20 minutes, as y'all know, but I'm really excited to get into episode 10, but I'm going to be real with you all. I'm going to be real. I'm going to almost want to take my time to get through these last few episodes, because then after that we have to wait a while. So I want to stay on time because that part of me very much wants to do so. But then the other part of me is like, I kind of don't want to stay on time because I want to take as long as it takes to get through these. So what can we do? But anyway, so we are going to start here in just a second. All right, y'all. So Shimizu is ready to watch this episode. I'm going to be really sad because Higuruma's not going to be in it. So that sucks, but what can we do? So anyway, we are starting at the 1 minute and 28 second mark because we're skipping the OP for now. I know it'll be all right. We're going to watch it eventually. We'll definitely watch it by the end of episode 12, but we'll see. So anyway, we are going to start episode 10 of Jujutsu Kaisen season 3, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and I'll see you all on the other side. Oh, buddy. Shimizu is like, there was no time to miss Higuruma in this episode. There was no time because Reggie Star and Takaba, what the fudge, Gege, are gonna make sure that you don't have time to think about Higuruma walking away because there's a lot of shit going down. I feel like Megumi and Yuji are two sides of the same getting the short end of the stick coin, because you have Yuji on the one hand, who is an innocent lamb that believes he should be slaughtered nonstop, and then you have Megumi, who is quite the black sheep, to put it bluntly, who is very capable of doing very messed up things and is totally fine with it, but karma is not being Megumi's friend in all of this. I don't want to get too crazy. I'm going to probably be getting crazy into it in this discussion, but I want you all to realize that I am going to be reviewing the manga at some point. So I'm going to be revisiting a lot of these ideas a second time over. That's why a lot of the stuff, there was a lot of things with Higuruma and his character that people in the comments were very quick to clarify and point out. And in my head, I was like, it's fine. But I'm also like, you all know I'm going to go back and reread the manga and have a fresh perspective on it. So things I miss as I talk about this episode immediately after recording the reaction, I'm going to have a chance to have time to reflect and ruminate and bring it all back up later on. So I hope people are aware of that. If you're on Patreon, you get to see those manga reactions, which I'm very proud of, and I love cosplaying and doing those. But if you're on YouTube, then you're not going to get to see that, so tough luck. But let's dive into this episode because we have a lot to talk about, and there was a surprising amount that happened and things that have not had questions answered that I'm like, okay, we're gonna have these. We have 2 more episodes in this core here in 3, 2, 1, as my dog's like, please play with me. We have 2 more episodes in this core. I do like the setup because I was like, okay, we have 3 episodes left. What are we gonna do? We're setting up in this gymnasium of all things. Gymnasium, giving me ghetto, gojo, high school vibes, hidden inventory vibes. I'm here for it. Gege loves himself a gymnasium. We're getting the setup of Reggie versus Megumi next episode. And then whatever is the result of Reggie versus Megumi, then we're going to have 1 more episode after that before the end of the core to kind of set stuff up for the second half of season 3. So that's exciting. I'm like, oh, buddy. And honestly, I want to take this moment to say that Mappa has really, with the animation in this core, if they are waiting and taking their time with the second half of season 3 to make sure the animation is as good as it is in this first core, I'm fine with that. I was a little annoyed at first when I was like, oh, we only have 12 episodes. That's all you're giving us. But now I'm like, no, the animation's been so fantastic that it's like, no, it's fine. It's all good. I feel like this season has gone by really fast so far because we had 2 episodes released at once for the first week, episodes 1 and 2, which were cinematic. And then episode 3 was kind of just exposition, lots of exposition. So I felt like that episode, not that it was a waste, we needed all that time to set up the culling games, but it felt like now, then we were in episode 4 already, and now it's just like flown by so quickly that it feels like 10 weeks has been nothing. And I'm like, I've waited 3 years. It's the curse of time. You wait like 3 years for something to come out, and then it comes out and it's very fast, and you're like, ah! So the good news is, we are going to get a second half to this season, I'm assuming, at some point. So that's a fun time. I don't know when. Nobody's been giving me that. I'm probably going to look it up after this is over, after the first core is over, unless the moderators tell me, but you know. So let's dive into this. We started out with Reggie pointing out that we're in this colony and that it's all just a ruse. The 10 colonies, as far as Reggie is concerned, we're going to put questions up here. Questions for the rest of the core that are probably not going to get answered. Maybe this will be answered by the end of episode 12. I doubt it. But one question is, Kenjaku's, we're going to put this up here, Kenjaku's actual plan. What is Kenjaku actually doing all this for? Here's the one thing I will say is, especially knowing now that Kenjaku is Yuji's parent and knowing that Kenjaku is probably having Yuji be a cage for Sukuna, then there is a part of me that's like, okay, no matter what happens, Kenjaku does not necessarily want to harm Yuji. Now, using Yuji as a scapegoat for everything else, maybe. Using Yuji later on when Sukuna has all 20 fingers, if that even is going to happen, sure, maybe. But in my mind, it gives me like this weird sense of insurance that Yuji's going to be okay. Physically, he's just going to be mentally destroyed by all of the guilt and everything else happening around him. So that's a great time. But it makes me be like, whenever Reggie is talking about that the rules idea of continuation is a cover for the real plan, because he gets in here and literally the entire colony looks like a target. It looks like a bomb is about to drop upon it, right? But when he says here, he says, mark my words, when only the strong remain, Kenjaku is going to drop a bomb on the game. So the question is, if we're down to just the strong players, if we're down to just that, what is the bomb? Is it like physical? Is it metaphorical? I would like to think it's the latter, but what does that mean? Why, if you've got all these strong players left, then what? Because in my mind, it's me thinking, okay, because Kenjaku's trying to force evolution, is what we thought. He's trying to force evolution of sorcerers. So having only the strong remain kind of goes back to season 1 and season 2 when they were talking about how when the sorcerers got stronger, it created this larger gap amongst everybody, and it forced sorcerers to kind of have to evolve to keep up, and it forced the curses to have to evolve to keep up as well. So if all you've got left are really strong sorcerers, then what does that do to the curses that are left over? What does that do with the curse energy? What does that do with humanity? So there's something connecting all that together, but Gege is playing it very close to the vest. And the thing is, we don't even know if Reggie's right. It could be a red herring. Reggie could be just throwing out this thing, and Kenjaku's like, no, the first plan was actually what I was doing. Even though what Reggie is saying makes a lot of sense, Kenjaku's kind of crazy and also has been playing the long game. So I'm like, I don't know. It's one of those things, it's like you don't know what to believe. Reggie seems very smart and very capable, but then it's like, well, then why didn't Tengen think of this? Because Tengen's supposed to be like immortal and smart, so why didn't they think of this? So either Tengen's not telling everybody everything, which that would not surprise me if Tengen was keeping stuff close to the vest because they're cautious. I don't know. And would Tengen sacrifice everybody with that knowledge? Well, yes, of course they would. I think they would. At the end of the day, they're just using Choso and Yuki as like bodyguards, so why wouldn't they? So the question is, what kind of bomb is it? The colon game will fulfill its purpose. So what is the bomb? We don't know what kind it's going to be, but it's going to happen in the near future. Now the question is it going to happen before, the end of this core, or is it going to happen like as a cliffhanger for the core? We don't know. We don't know. So Reggie, in response, is gathering strong allies and stocking up points. So that's the plan. So let's put Reggie Star over here. Let's put our players on the board. We have Reggie Star, who we find out has 41 points. We're going to put Remy here. We don't know how many points Remy has, which is problematic. And also Remy herself is problematic because she very much is, She's in the Misa Amane school of trusting men, which is not a good school to be in, just FYI. I'm like, girl. And I like how Megumi tries to be a little bit feminist, where he's like, quit relying on these men. They're all scum. I was like, yes, Megumi. Megumi is saying these truth bombs, which is great. Also going to put Megumi up here. Megumi has 5 points now. Megumi has 5 points. He be killing people. And I was honestly, I'm not surprised he killed somebody, but at the same time, it is just, I really like Megumi being this morally gray character, and for Gege to have him murder someone is like, okay, we're doing this. Yuji would not be happy about it, but we're doing it. So yeah, I like that Megumi instantly is like, I don't think she's that strong. Now, whether Megumi is correct or not, here's the thing. If shonen has taught me anything, it's not always about being the strongest character. It's how desperate are you? And in several series, the phrase, the scariest person is a very desperate average individual, holds true. So Remy may not be the strongest in the room, but if she's desperate and she believes that Reggie's the only person to protect her, and Reggie is like, I need you to do something, she's probably going to do it because she is that reliant upon him. And Megumi is like, well, that's a dumb thing to do, but it's like, that's how people work. I loved, okay, the animation in this entire series, this episode was so great because as soon as Megumi says that, I love Remy just being like she instantly like collapsed, her face, whatever. And Reggie's like, well, she's bait to lure in players here for whatever reason works for me. And he's like, people tend to be less wary of women, you know? Again, Reggie's operating under, you can tell Reggie's an older sorcerer operating under this standard because Gege has clearly shown us through Maki and Yuki and others that you probably should be wary of women. Maybe a little bit. I feel like Reggie would be very surprised by Maki if he met her. And so Megumi's like, when you're done using her, you can just kill her for points, right? Again, that she kind of flinched whenever he said you're just going to kill her when you're done using her. And Reggie's pause of, Reggie did not immediately go, oh no, we're not going to kill her. She's with me. He did not do that. He pauses and then says, what are you talking about? Like confirming everything Megumi is saying. He's like, oh, I'd never do that. And then Megumi's like, yeah, about that. Camera cut out, so let's try this again. Here, we're going to get this back up here in 3, 2, 1. So, yeah, then Remy is like, well, Reggie's my true knight. And I'm like, girl, come on now. I think even Megumi's like, are you for real? As long as I serve him, he'll protect me. And Megumi's like, yeah. What's interesting about that in its own sentiment is that Megumi kind of knows about that with Gojo from a perspective, and hear me out, because Megumi was under the impression that since Gojo was his teacher and his father figure and his mentor, that as long as he was around, everything was going to be fine. And Gojo getting sealed by Geto, aka Brain-kun, has taught Megumi that no, you can't rely upon that. You can't rely upon anybody being your savior. That ain't gonna work. So even Yuji, which we'll talk about him and Yuji a little bit later on, even then he knows that he can't just rely upon Yuji to do everything. It's not always going to work out. So I feel like in a respect, Megumi is trying to reach Remy in this episode to be like, girl, you can't think this way. It will not go the way that you want it to. He's like, that's naive and stupid, which you would wonder if Megumi's projecting just a little bit upon himself. He's like, do you and your allies possess at least 100 points between you all? Yes, they do. He's not lying. They do actually possess that. He's like, well, yeah. So he's like, I'll let the player, Megumi's like, there's going to be a rule transferred here shortly that's going to let players transfer points between themselves. So you need to hand over. Megumi's just like, hand him over. Megumi is not wasting any time. Negotiations? What negotiations? He's like, just give me your points. I don't got time to waste. So give them to me. And Reggie's like, well, F you. So not going to do that. Okay, so this guy shows up with his like Wolverine claws. And damn, Megumi with the damn wrestling move. Megumi, there's a lot of Megumi that was really good in this episode. There was a lot of Megumi that I was like, all right, let's get it. Freaking love that. Like him just tossing him out the side of the window. Great. And so then Megumi definitely proved in this episode why having all these Shikigami is a quality the Zenin clan would really aspire to have, because being able to use Nu and his dog and the frogs and the elephant all at once in sync with one another worked out very well in his favor. And like it shows how powerful he could really be, honestly. I mean, and good for Megumi for not going the suicidal route. Good for him. Was a little tidbit worried. So yeah, him looking back saying, don't let me see your face again. Well, that's short-lived. That is very short-lived, in fact. And Reggie's like, look, I get it. Reggie using all the knives? No, stop it. I get you're an old sorcerer and that's probably all y'all had back then, but stop stabbing people. Everybody getting stabbed, getting their eyes out this episode. No. I thought you were being lax, but you can't kill us. You want the points that we have. So Reggie's like, look, I ain't got no qualms killing you. I'll just go on and kill other sorcerers, but you don't want to kill us because you want our points from this rule that you're getting made up. You'll regret it once you're dead. Megumi's like, yeah, we'll see about that. Damn these eyeballs. All these eyeballs in this series. This guy has a crazy ability. And what Mappa with the damn magma explosion coming off the screen? Mappa's just like, hey, we have your attention. You're on season 3 of Jujutsu Kaisen. You've been here for 2 seasons. We're just going to experiment with some stuff. Hope you're fine with it. Hope that we can make art out of this season. So that's what we're doing. Just crazy. So yeah, immediately Remy and Reggie knew that the explosion was going to happen. And Megumi's like, son of a bitch. Also want to point out the apartment with all of the manga sketchbooks. Gege Akutami is a friend of Tatsuki Fujimoto, who has created the Chainsaw Man series. And Tatsuki Fujimoto has a short. You should go watch it and read it. I have the manga reaction on my channel for Look Back. Super good. But this whole like aisle of the manga stacked up and the different sketchbooks is very Look Back. And so I was like, it felt like a reference and like a little homage to Fujimoto. So I thought that was fun. That was cool. Also, can we just establish that regardless of what happens, like the collateral damage done in these colonies is going to be pretty crazy to try to like fix later on. Yuji is like him and Higuruma are just messing up a theater, and these guys are destroying buildings, wrecking apartments, getting a gymnasium wrecked, you know. This guy here is interesting. So Iori Hazanoki, let's get him on the board. Even though he may end up dying by the end of this. Iori Hazanoki, we can assume he has 35 points. We can assume, so at least Reggie has killed at least one civilian. At least that we know of, because they were only worth 1 point. He's killed at least one civilian and possibly other sorcerers. We don't know. Hazanoki, since it's an odd number, like 35, since it's a multiple of 5, we can assume he's just been killing sorcerers. We can assume. We don't know. We can assume. We don't know about Remy at all. But Hazanoki is clearly a sorcerer from the past that is reincarnated. The scariest thing about Hazanoki is not the fact that their body parts can be used as explosives. That's crazy in itself, but it's the fact that the body parts recreate and regenerate. Like his teeth regenerated, his eyes regenerated. That's crazy. And I don't like that at all. Nope. I feel like that's not fair. I feel like you should have to, once you use the body part, you don't get to use it again. That's not fair at all. So yeah. So then we have now Remy using her hair like a scorpion sting is fun. I am a little bit worried because they don't address it in this episode, but one of the questions that I have is Remy's hair, is it poison? If it's poison and it has a slow acting effect, then she's got, you know, she got Megumi in the side with her like stinger of her hair. So is that if it's poisonous, is it going to like have a delayed reaction? And when he's in the middle of fighting Reggie, is it going to activate and like, what do we do? So I don't know. But yeah, Megumi's like, I thought I told you, girl. And then I like that he's like, are you okay with this? I really like that Megumi is trying to reach her at the same time. Like, he's frustrated with Remy, but he's like, hey, are you cool with them using you and you dying? Like, seriously. Props to Megumi for going through that. Also, we have Amos oil and something else for 6,500 yen. Oh, okay, so it's just oil. So he's trying to ignite and make it have more of an explosion and light him on fire. Okay. Poor Megumi. Also, can we talk about Megumi and Yuji having matching scars? Because they pretty much do. He ran into a room. Not bad. And so, yeah, so him and Remy. Also, the fact that he rescued Remy, I think, is important to note. Megumi could have just left her. He could have just left her to die out there in the explosion, but he didn't. He brought her in. Megumi is such an interesting character in this episode because he's showing that he, at some points, don't care what happens to people, but at the same time, he could have killed Remy. He could have killed her, gotten over it, took the point, but he saves her from some reason, so that's interesting. Is it because she used to be the worm wrapped around Toji, his father, and he feels a sense of kinship? No. Her hair's like a scorpion tail, so I guess that's the route they're going. It's just, damn, choose the same color scheme, why don't you? He's like, if you understand that, then get lost. Again, Megumi is trying to be a nice person, being chivalrous against all odds, and telling her to get lost. And then what does she do? She stabs him with her hair. And he's like, are you freaking for real? Yeah, I like that. Again, the half burn from... Did Toji have a burn on his face like that? I don't think he did. And I don't think Gojo did as well. But now you can see like he has a burn on the side of his face like Yuji... And the one side of his face that's burned is like the opposite of where Yuji's is. So, you know, couple scars. You know, like you do. But yeah, she's like, then say it. Reggie-sama said it for me. I feel a little bit bad for Remy. Because she's like, he said he'd protect me. And that he liked me. And Megumi's like, well, girl, I don't like you that way. And I'm not going to protect you either. He's like, I just felt sorry for you. So I spared you. But he's like... Again, I feel like there might be a side of Megumi as well that is playing a long game where he thinks he can, if he can prove that Reggie doesn't care for Remy, he can use that to his advantage and have her kind of like maybe double cross Reggie in the end. I don't know if Megumi's playing the long game like that and that's why he spared her, but it could be. It could be. But yeah, she looks really pitiful there. She's like, so you say it too. And he's like, no. I love his face where he's like, why are you being pathetic? And he says, sometimes you run into them, scumbags like you who are all talk and no action. He's definitely planting a seed there where Megumi's like, you know what? He's like, you're just as scummy as them. He's like, do something. She's like, shit or get off the pot, basically, is what he tells her. And then he's like, thanks for that throw. Okay, so then this guy shows up. Chizuru Hari. Okay. So Chizuru Hari had 28 points. And so altogether, now Chizuru Hari, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, dies. And so before, like with Reggie and Iori, they have 76 points, right? If Megumi's gets added to that, that would make it be 81, close to 100. We don't know how many points that Remy has. So, but if they had combined with Chizuru in the moment, then they would have had, we know Takaba has 0. We know that he has 0 points, so he's of no use. So, we have, this is going to be Romania using some simple math. And then we're going to put that over here. So we had 6. And we have 8, which is 14. Bring the 1 over, so there's 7, 8, 9. So they had 104 points. They had 104 points that if they had been able to think up a rule really quickly, they could have used them, but they did not. So, which honestly, it is not to your benefit to use the rule too fast because you need to think about it because then once those 100 points are gone, as Reggie has established, there's only so many sorcerers, only so many points up for grabs. once they're gone, and Hashimo's out there getting probably most of them. So what do we do? Also, we're going to talk about that in a hot second. So we have 104 points on the table, no more. Now we're just down to 76. So honestly, the points you would need 24 points to have 100. So Remy really only needs 20 points or 19 points to be good to go. We need 19 to 24 points to make this system work. Because right now, if Remy doesn't have 19 to 24 points, we're not going to make it to 100. So then we can't use an extra rule, which, as Megumi kind of establishes in this episode, now that Yuji's gotten the rule from Higuruma, he doesn't really need to focus on the points, because that was the main part, was to get the rule in the first place. So yeah, then old Kogami, our little Kogani, shows up. Doesn't really have a cool design for any of them. And Megumi is like, okay. I love Megumi's surprise face where he's like, Yuji's already got it. Okay, that's happened. I wonder if Megumi was also telling kind of a bluff earlier because he didn't know how long it was going to take Yuji to get those points. So, and this guy's like, what kind of rule is that? Well, also, I think we need to establish that because Megumi has killed this guy, he's good for 19 days as well. So, we're good for 19 days. No worries. I don't know how it's okay. So it's been 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks. And Takaba has 0 points. So Takaba has like, if Takaba doesn't kill Iori and take all of his points and do that, if he doesn't do that, then he's going to die in like 5 days. Right? He's going to die in like 5 days. So he's going to have to get Iori to the point where he takes all of his points away, or maybe leaves him with 1 because he's a nice guy. But he says he's pro-violence, so he may take all of his points away so that he's fine, and then he can give some of them to Megumi. Okay. Interesting. Because, yeah, honestly, they need all of the points from Iori, Reggie, Remy, and him to create another rule. But again, Megumi may not create another rule. They may just need the points just to keep going for now. I liked the bedroom. I liked the details Mappa did of showing like the bedroom with all the stickers and the paint missing. That was kind of cool, like the roughness of it. Loved that. And then, yeah, the two of them fighting. Mappa did such a good job with the animation for this. But yeah, and then the frogs back and forth. Honestly, of all the Shikigami, like the bunnies we knew were like an escape tactic from the start, but it was kind of cool to see the frogs have a purpose because the bunnies have always been an escape tactic. The elephant and the dog are clearly for like offensive purposes, but to see, and then new is to like find people, get away, escape as well, like the rabbits. So to see the frogs be used and to have a purpose that's kind of offensive was kind of neat. I liked that a lot. Fun times. But yeah, and then they burst out the window at the elephant. He did it again, in fact. And then as he goes down, Megumi taking the damn blunt end of the sword and just knocking him through. Megumi was like, I'm done. Megumi's like, I have had enough. I've been having to suffer through this. No thank you. No more. And then I'm amazed that he's like, how dare you? And then just cleaved him in the face. And then he did. Like, damn. What am I doing? I'll need more points in the future, too. So, Chizuru's done. No points from him. Those 28 points are gone. Which the 28 means that he killed some civilians, too. So, make note of that. He's like, I'll need more points in the future as well. But Sumiki won't be forced to participate in the killing anymore. I feel like there's been this kind of weight lifted from Megumi's shoulders. Now that he's like, okay, my sister doesn't have to participate in the culling games because of the point transfer, so we're good there. We've taken one weight off my shoulders, but I may need those points to make another rule in the future. He's like, don't lose your patience. Believe in the others. The fact that Megumi has to tell himself that, the fact that he has to trust in others and he has to force himself to believe it is an interesting parallel and also contrast to Yuji. Because I feel like Yuji trusts in others, but he also he doesn't believe in himself. Like, Megumi believes in himself. Megumi believes that he will get the job done if he has to. Or he'll sacrifice everything to do it. Yuji doesn't believe in himself at all. He just is like, I gotta do it, so I guess I'll try. And if I die in the process, you know. But Yuji does believe in others to an extent. And Megumi struggles with that. So that's a cool parallel and contrast between them. He's like, don't obsess over their points. All I need to do is use my full might to brush off any sparks that fall on me. Megumi just being like, I just need to keep myself in check, keep myself from getting too hurt, and we'll all be good. I'm like, And he's like, you've earned 5 points. And what's interesting is Kogani's, like, tail is different from all of them. Like, the one that was with the Chizuru guy looked like a little scythe, and Megumi's looks like a spatula. And so, this here, what a waste of points. So it's Reggie's ability using the damn Mary Poppins umbrellas. And it looks like they're imbuing it with cursed energy so that the umbrellas actually work. Getting killed before he could even use this technique. Well, Gege's like, I ain't wasting time. And he's like, did Remy drop out? I don't think Remy has dropped out at all. I think she is waiting in the wings, and one of two things, or both of these things will happen. Either she's going to attack Megumi, and because she still believes in Reggie, and, well, I guess one of 3 things could happen. Option 1 is that she waits in the shadows until Megumi is about to, like, win against Reggie, and then she attacks him, and he's like, son of a bitch, and then she thinks Reggie's going to reward her when he's going to hurt her. So there's that option. 2, she realizes that Reggie is no good and helps Megumi in the end. Or 3, a combination where she hurts Megumi, but then she double crosses Reggie as well. I think one of those 3 options is going to happen. I don't think Remy is out at all. That's just, I feel like even Megumi saying that is Gege making us remember that she's in the background somewhere, right? He's like, I'm still feeling that first explosion. Fleeing is not an option. He's like, I can't run away from these guys. So what do I do? And then he's like, I could use my domain, but my domain is still incomplete. That's another difference between Yuji and Megumi. Yuji just flies into the face of it and is like, I'll make it work. And Megumi, because he's so smart and because he's very calculating and strategic, he overthinks things a little bit. And so he's like, I need a space. He talks about needing a space to contain his domain, which is why he was going to use the gym, because it's a perfect building that's big enough to contain the domain. And it's Megumi imagining containing the domain. That's the thing. Megumi, part of a domain expansion is your imagination and using that imagination to create this space. And Megumi, for all his strategy and smarts, has trouble imagining the domain being contained, which is interesting. It's a little different than Gojo. Gojo's just like, yeah, it's always on all the time. Everything's great. And Megumi's not at that point yet, which is interesting. But yeah, so he's like, I can't close the barrier and trap my foe inside. All about them barriers. I do love, like, the way that Hazanoki is drawn in this. The worst outcome would be them running off and making me waste it. Yeah, because once you've used a domain, it's kind of like, can't just fire that thing up at will. I like the blood that's coming off of the umbrella there. That's a cool little detail with Hazanoki. Hazanoki looks like a character from Bleach, a character from Blue Lock, just that mullet. He just has a look to him that he's like shonen antagonist. So then Megumi is like, son of a bitch, I'm about to get hit with this stupid tooth, get knocked here, our poor boy with his facial scars, and then a fever dream. A fever dream from Gege's mushroom-addled mind at some point appears for no reason. Why is this man here? What is happening? What? So Takaba has this sense of justice. We're all about these characters with senses of justice in this season, aren't we? Aren't we? At first I thought Hikari, whose name escaped my poor brain for a hot second. At first I thought it was going to be Hikari that was going to be like because Hikari talked about kind of like with the JUJUTSU Kaisen system and his sense of justice with it, and how the higher ups have like an unfair advantage and they're not thinking of the grand scheme of things like Hikari would like them to. So Hikari has a sense of justice. Then you have Higuruma, who has a very distinct sense of justice, as we've come to see the last 2 episodes. Then we have this guy, this man, just in half a costume, half nude. I want to go back and try to see everybody's reactions to him just being there. Like, it explodes in his face. Love that. And then in that moment, as it explodes, you have Reggie got his hand on his hips like, what the Can we talk about Megumi's face? As Reggie's got his hand on his hips there. I'm trying to get, like, the right screen. Megumi's just like, everything about Megumi hates all of this. Megumi is like, I'm never judging Yuji again. Megumi is the perfect character to put up against characters like Hikari and Todo and Takaba and Reggie, because Megumi is so straight-laced and stoic and serious that putting him up against these characters who are batshit crazy and flamboyant and eccentric, he's just like, no. That's fucking hilarious. Sorry, didn't mean to drop that F-bomb. And then Reggie's like, what? I love Reggie is like, I'm supposed to be the most eccentric person in the room. Why have you come to steal my thunder? Who the hell are you? And then I love that Hazanoke is like, I wasted my tooth for that? What? Amazing. I just feel like you have, again, he's like, do you think that's really fair having 2-on-1? As an arrangement? That's not very nice. Do you know what they call people like you? Cowards. How is this outfit even on him? How is this outfit on him? How is this outfit able to stay on his person? Also, if you notice, we were very much down the middle till we got below the belt, and then we shifted over just a little bit to make this PG for the kids. Oh my gosh, he's like, cowardly attacks don't work on me. Behold! 0 damage as I just love he says 0 damage as blood is pouring out of his head like a fountain. And Megumi's like, I didn't come here for any of this. Oh my god. So what we don't know, and that's why Hazanoki was trying to get some exposition for us, and Takaba resists all exposition because of course he does. But Hazanoki was trying to be like, what era are you from? He's like, are you a sorcerer like Reggie and I? So Hazanoki establishes that he is a sorcerer that made a pact with Kenjaku long ago. He's now using someone as a vessel, which explains like the way that he's dressed. He just put some pants on with some suspenders to walk around and be decent. But Hazanoki's like, are you like Reggie and I that are old sorcerers that have come back? Or are you like Higuruma and you're someone that's just gained these techniques? I kind of want to say that he's an old sorcerer like the two of them, because he talks about taking on the form of a comedian that he saw on TV, which seems like something that just recently happened and he was inspired by, and he kind of has the vibe of like an old sorcerer that saw TV for the first time and was really influenced by it. I don't know what to make of that, but oh my god. Everything about this next minute of cinema is the most unhinged, weird, hilarious thing that Gege has maybe ever created. Because it's like, it's taking Toto's locket scene where the locket busts open and there's like the magical rainbows and it's like Hellsing abridged where Alucard's like, the fuck is this? The fuck is that? Like, it's like that, but you put this in a blender, put it on high, and then amp up the absurdity to like a 12. And that's this scene. And I just want to appreciate every, like, Megumi like does like a double take in this moment where he's like, what is happening? Megumi's faces are so good. Where he's like, he just like the part where he just like turns away and he's like, I don't know how to deal with this. He's like, what do I do with this? He's like, this is insane. What are we doing? And he's like, I'm not the right person to deal with. Yuji, if Yuji had been here, Yuji would have been like, best friendo. This is so amazing. You're so cool. Thank you for coming to help. Like, Yuji would have been able to handle this. Megumi has no freaking clue what to do. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, just his actions, everything. He's like, I don't. It's almost like Megumi is trying to piece together in his mind. He's like, how does this work? Where did he come from? Why is he here? Why is he helping me? What? How do I get out of this? Do I do the suicidal move now? And then you cut to Reggie and Hazanoke, and they're both just like, what? Reggie's like, I don't even know what we do with this. And Hazanoke's like, they're both just like, what? Are we gonna fight? What? Is this how far we've come? I love Hazanoke's like just expression there, like, God, what is happening? I love every moment of this. It's some of the best physical humor I've seen in anime in some time. That was so funny. I loved that so much. It was so great. Yeah, so Fumihiko Takaba, 0 points. Young boy, I'll help you. Okay, the young boy thing, because on the surface, like, he looks like something out of Space Dandy, if we're being real. So his name is Fumihiko. When he said young boy, it was very much giving me the vibes of, because in appearance, he looks to be what, like 30? So the way that he's acting, he says he's 35. So he says, young boy, I will help you. I'm like, you're only 35. You're not that much older. I'm 35 this year. Okay, so he does, I think he's establishing he's not one of the older sorcerers, but he's just gotten these abilities. Why Kenjaku picked him? I don't know. We've not got his backstory yet. So to look at someone's face, I can tell if you're a good or a bad person. And then he looks at me, he's like, what? I feel like maybe he's confused when he looks at Megumi. He's like, oh, well, you're kind of both. You're kind of good and bad. He's like, you've got quite a bad look to you. Yes. And Megumi's like, whatever. I just use a relative grading school like schools. He's like, schools use absolute grading scales. I love that Megumi's like, wait a minute. No. I love that he's like, oh, I just use the grading scale, so it's not that big of a deal. And Megumi's like, actually, it's pretty objective. I do like that when he turns around, though, with the blood still spurting out of his head comically, that he does have a more serious look to him. Megumi's like, okay, I'm just gonna trust him. Also, one little tiny detail that Mappa does, they have like the burn scar from the explosion, but then there's like little bits of darker flesh that's like bleeding or whatever. I'm like, let's have Megumi not get an infection, shall we? And Reggie's like, what do you make of this? Like, what is going on? He's like, I don't know him. We're just gonna ask. And he's like, hey! He's like, which type are you? Like, were you given powers by Kenjaku? Were your techniques activated? Or are you a sorcerer like we are? Are you a vessel or are you like a late bloomer? And he's like, I don't know what you're asking. He's like, I get it. You're asking me if I'm funny or not. And Azunoki's like, no, that's not it at all. He's like, no. He's like, I'm not. I'm asking what era are you from? And he's like, this costume I'm wearing is modeled after the hero who first made me laugh my guts off. Okay, so apparently he's a reference to something in Japanese television. I feel like the only thing we get is the calendar having like 3 on it. So my thing is like, he was playing old tapes over and over again. So I just don't know if his technique was activated or what is going on. He's like, I can't let my jokes fall flat. Also, how that costume is even able to exist is defying the laws of nature in itself. It really is. Because I don't think that that's a bodysuit. Unless it's a bodysuit. Sure. He's like, try using this gag on your sweetheart. Gege's like, we have to do this. It's so ridiculous. And then Reggie's like, be ready for something. He's like, this guy's going to do something crazy. And then Megumi is just like, I want to go home. I want to find Yuji. I want to go home. And then this! What is this? What even is this, Gege? Gege, I feel like Gege was really rushed one week during production of his manga, and he was like, fine, I'm just going to create this character, and we're going to do this, and I can do it because I am a famous mangaka now, so you can't stop me. I hope the manga has this exact same panel. I hope this panel is exactly like it is in the manga. Do not tell me if it is or not. Please don't spoil that. I want it to be a surprise. I hope that it is. I so hope that it is, because that's so freaking funny. Yep. Love it. He's like, there are always jerks like you. People who forgot how to laugh in the womb. Interesting. You know, considering how much we've had with Kenjaku and Cursed Womb paintings, if this man was just chosen to have these abilities, then I kind of believe it, and I could see why he would choose him for that kind of logic. Yep. Also, I just can't decide if it's a suit or not. We're not going to think too much on it. You might be the problem. And Megumi's like, why am I here? Yes, he has the same vibes. Also, kind of ironic that Todo and Megumi now have a similar scar. Todo would probably compliment him on it. But yeah, very interesting that they have similar scars now on their face. Yeah, he has the same vibes. I thought that Hikari was going to be the Todo to Megumi that Todo is for Yuji. Takaba. Takaba is the new Todo, is Megumi's Todo now. He's like, I'm not going to abandon you either. Because I love how fast he is an entertainer. Amazing. So, being an entertainer, he has been gifted super speed and strength in the moment, like a massive energy output that Reggie notes. So, interesting. This guy is strong. He's like, I'm an old school entertainer who's pro-violence. I'm like, well, that's terrifying, but very helpful in the moment. He's like, now what will you do? He's like, okay, look. He's like, we're going to split these. He's like nodding his head over and over again. And Megumi's like, just ignore it. Just get the plan. The other sorcerer is capable of turning his body parts into bombs. And he's using the reverse curse technique. And he's like, you're too close. When the moment he kept nodding, like he was like, yes, 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 yes. He's like, get away from me. I love it. I love it. And so he's like, Kogani. He's like, yes. And then he says, pull up Hiromi Higuruma's information. I want to make note of this. So he says, secret. He says, search results. Hiromi Higuruma. Current colony is Tokyo #1. And he has 1 point to his name. Itadori is the one who added the rule. Yes. Go back to that, y'all. That look there when he says Yuji added the rule and Megumi has that little smile on his face like, you damn right he added the rule. I was like, every part of my fangirl shipping being is just that little smirk. He's like, damn right Yuji did it. Like Megumi's so proud in that moment. It just, it sends me. I love it. So good. And he's like, I'm done. He's like, Yuji's fine. Higuruma gave him the rule, gave him the point. I'm done with this colony. Let's wrap this up. I gotta go find my boo, and then we gotta get out of here. So, speaking of which, before we get into him versus Reggie and all of that going down, because they end up splitting up, Takaba's gonna take on Hazanoki, however that ends up. I feel like Takaba's going to get rid of Hazanoki. I just feel like it's going to happen. I feel like he's just crazy enough to let it work. But he's like, where do you think that you stand? He's like, I need to recover the points that I lost from you killing Hari. And he's like, it's Takaba. If you're going to kill the bomb bastard, then if you can, try to steal his points first. And he's like, okay, I accept your request. I feel like Hazanoki might be in trouble. Could be. He says, but I'm an entertainer. I'm an entertainer. I'll never do anything that will rob a person of their ability to smile. I feel like that's going to be dark and twisted later on because Hazanoki has a thing where he keeps taking his teeth out to do the explosion. And I feel like Takaba, in a dark, twisted way, is going to be like, oh, no. You need those teeth to smile. And he's going to attack him in a way that he can't use the teeth as bombs. That's my theory. We'll see if that plays out. But like the way that they do the hyper, like hyper shading on this moment, and Megumi's like, I just don't care. Megumi looks a lot like Gojo in that moment. Quite a bit. He looked more Gojo than Toji in this episode. And then the sparking with the curse. His cursed penis. Oh my god. And then, yep, he goes to take the teeth out. He's like, what a dangerous technique. But in variety shows, I love he's like in variety shows, and just smacks him upside the face. Damn. Oh my gosh. And then this part here, as soon as he was crouched down, I'm like, I know he's gonna poke him right in the butt. Yep, red is banned. Ah! This poor man. He woke up in a vessel, has been trying to kill sorcerers, pulling his teeth and his eyes out, and gets poked in the butt at a super high rate. Bless. And I love the Megumi's like, I'm glad you're not my enemy, Takaba. I love that because I feel like Megumi is like, I would have gone crazy. There's no way I could have handled that. Nope, not gonna do it. He's like, yes, I've always wanted to hear that. Later, young boy. And so then Reggie's like, yeah, after that much mockery, Hazanoke will get serious. And Megumi's like, don't care. Worry about yourself. He's like, I just had to get rid of both of them, so now we're good. I told you, didn't I? I achieved my objective, so I'm not going to hold back. And Reggie's like, okay, that seems like a bluff. So he goes, this entire sequence with him running, Mappa. I'm going to pause here in a second, but it's just like everything about the stuff, like this little CGI of all the stuff falling over on the, oh, I don't know. I can't say what they're called, but it's like the different railings where they're like usually doing construction and stuff like that. The stair railings. So good. This part here where he flies through the damn power lines and the cords. So good. So good. Yeah, Megumi looks a lot like Gojo in that moment. He looks a little bit like Toji, but a lot like Gojo in that moment where he's like, I'm so done. That is the face of a man who is like, I should have been out of here 12 hours ago and been back with Yuji, and I'm stuck doing this bullshit. Poor Megumi. Poor Megumi this episode. He gets such the shaft. And then the moment he takes the receipts and made all of this stuff fly out of just nowhere, so cool. I love the creativity of Reggie's, like his outfit are all weapons. But they're not just that. His ability with Reggie is that he has contracts, which is, again, very similar to Kenjaku. If he made a contract with Kenjaku, that would make a lot of sense. But he has contracts with the objects. Like he could use the receipt for the spa visit to heal himself and regenerate. That makes me a little bit worried because he could have a lot of those on his person. He stapled some back to his body later on in the episode, so it makes me think that the ones he stapled back on are ones he really wants to save until the last moment. I'm like, is Reggie going to end up naked by the end of this, like, core, and he's just, like, naked, all his receipts are gone? I don't know. Also, I kind of like the lesson that Gege kind of gives us with Reggie's ability is that kind of like we live in a very consumerist culture where it's very much like materialism and collecting things and buying things, and this sort of gives a weapon-like property to that, which is really interesting. I think that's a cool and creative concept. But yeah, and Reggie's not dumb. Reggie may be annoying, but he is not dumb. He very quickly realizes how Megumi's abilities work and what some of the limitations of those abilities are. His mistake is that he doesn't realize Megumi is strong enough to have a domain expansion, because he probably would have been like, why didn't you just start out using that? But Megumi, his domain is kind of conditional. It's so interesting how Higuruma immediately used his domain expansion. Didn't even hesitate. It was just like, domain expansion, done. And Megumi's like, I gotta make sure everything's all in the right environment, to the right specifications. Like, you know. Also, the Surfing Pikachu reference is just, love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. I want to cosplay as Reggie at a convention so bad. I want to make a receipt outfit. But yeah, he takes those receipts, he staples them to him to make sure that he's got them, he's not going to lose any. And just the creativity of using like the wall climbing thing, it's so good. So good. But yeah. And then him with the pole to keep using all the receipts on the line is interesting, like setting up the trap for Megumi. I'm not gonna lie, I was getting Who Framed Roger Rabbit vibes when that piano fell. And speaking of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, then he escapes using the rabbits, the Shikigami, so that was fun. That was great. And then he takes part of the building and throws it into a church, which feels very emblematic. I like the idea that in the church, as Reggie explains his powers, he takes the receipts from the spa and he rejuvenates himself inside the church, which kind of has some symbolism of revitalizing yourself, of your divine being. Also, I'm never going to get over Megumi using his ability to come out of the shadows. Amazing. Love it. So good. But yeah. And I like that he comes out of the shadows in the box, not in the church. Again, Reggie is establishing himself as this sorcerer with this divine ability, and Megumi is this character from the shadows that is a very morally gray character. Like, he has literally inserted himself into this place of, like, divine purity, and Megumi kind of is like this blot in that space, which I feel is, like, Gege telling us. So, contractual recreation is what his ability is called. Contractual recreation. I could see why Kenjaku would want to form a contract with someone with that ability. I could see why he'd want to do that. Also, it's so hard to pick a thumbnail for this. I would almost want to use this shot because it's so good, but then I kind of want to use Takaba because I have a feeling that next week is going to be Megumi versus Reggie. It's hard to pick a thumbnail, damn it. There's so many good shots in this episode. So yeah, he gets a 5-star rejuvenation. And he's like, you know, how are you in comparison? I just had like a spa treatment and you're over here like with injuries and you're exhausted. And Megumi's like, well, actually, sir. I like that Megumi thinks to himself, he's like, I'm used to doing multiple Shikigami at once, so don't count me out too much yet. But he does bring up the point that Reggie brings out, that he's doing more than he normally is doing. And he hasn't brought the dog out because the dog is injured. So until he's healed up, he's not probably going to be able to use it. And then he's like, hold it. And then he manages to get out. Also, the idea of him using the drones, again, Reggie is really thriving in this current era, because if he had this ability back hundreds of years ago, maybe even thousands of years ago, we don't know for sure, there's a good possibility that, you know, he was only able to use what was at his disposal. Now, there's all sorts of things he can use, and things with lots of abilities like the drones. So, I mean, and including the Vespa. I like that of all things, okay, couple things about this. One, the Vespa. He could have done like a badass motorcycle, but he gets like a little Vespa moped. And then 2, he put the little helmet on. Reggie is not above helmet and head safety. It's just little things like that, little touches that I'm like, that's so clever, Gege. I love it. Also, the fact that he knows how to use a smartphone. I don't know. A community gymnasium. Did he flee inside or is he luring me in? Well, both. Both, actually. And he's like, well, I don't want to keep chasing him, so let's just go. The fact that we've been comparing Yuji and Megumi to one another with Gojo and Geto, and the fact that Gojo and Geto had the basketball scene in the gym, and now we're in the gym again, it feels on the nose, Gege. It feels a wee bit on the nose. The perfect size. Yeah, and then Reggie's like, look, you're planning something clearly, but Reggie's like, I'm not going to let you just lure me in here without me going balls to the walls from the start. Like, Reggie is not playing around, and the fact that he's been able to collect all these receipts over the last how many days, and he says, all sorcerers tell lies. Ooh, okay. That, to me, in the moment, I would be hoping that Remy would be, like, in the wings listening so that she could, like, hear that, to be like, well, all sorcerers tell lies. So when he says he's going to protect you, clearly he's not, because all sorcerers tell lies. And Megumi's just like, yeah, no. That was such a good moment with Mappa, getting that animation in. And I felt so bad for Megumi because he just keeps getting attacked by the potted plants, by everything. Also, the fact that he grabbed the plant, like, and was able to pull his sword out of the shadow from the plant soil. So good. So good. But yeah, all of this stuff that he's been collecting over and over again being used to throw at him, and Megumi's just like, F it. Not fair for him having the knife thrown through his arm. What in the Resident Evil? That's just, ugh. No, stop it. I feel so bad for our boy. He's been stabbed multiple times now, in the back, in the front. He's been burned. Like, our poor boy has been through a lot this episode. And he's just like, I'm done. He's like, yeah. He's like, you're about to kill me. Barrier techniques are difficult. I haven't been able to get the hang of placing an artificial space. And then I'm using this gymnasium as is. I love that the map of just the way they animate his eyes. I am a little bit worried that the gymnasium is not totally enclosed now, that there's parts of it that have been, like, you know, destroyed. So I don't know how to feel about that. I feel like he had a really good setup with the gym. And since the semis have come through, the trucks have come through, it's like, is that not going to be as perfect as it needs to be? Or is he just going to roll with it? He really doesn't have a choice, because Reggie's going to kill him if he doesn't. And Reggie's like, wait, he can use a domain? And Megumi's like, bitch, I can. And I will. That face. Oh, that face. He's like, I am done with today. Today is not the day. Now, this all makes a lot of sense, because back in season 1, when he used the domain expansion for the first time, he was in a cave. So the idea that it was contained within this one environment makes a lot of sense now with what he says he's struggled with. I was honestly, to be real with you all, I was hoping that we would have like a little Gojo flashback of Megumi having a talk with Gojo, but that may happen next week. We've had no Gojo really in this at all for this season, because Kenjaku's been off screen doing whatever. But yeah, I'm really hoping that we get like maybe a little talk with Megumi and Gojo next week. But yeah, the Chimera Shadow Garden. I love it. I love that it is expanded. It is more complete. It's not just like, F it, here's the bare bones. I love whatever is coming out of this monstrosity in the center is crazy. The blue and the red. Also the blue and the red. I mean, Yuji's got the red. Megumi's got the blue. Do with that what you will. Yes, he is a sorcerer on that level. Did you not think of that? He says, I never said I didn't have big moves. Megumi's like, I just didn't want to use them. Like, who pulls out their trump card right off the bat? Megumi's like, that's a dumb idea. Love it. I love the red and the blue together. I am a bit worried. I feel like Reggie has a lot up his sleeve he can still use. So, and Megumi's is not perfect. It's still not, like, mastered. So I worry about Megumi a little bit. It's not going to be easy. Like, but what a great setup for the penultimate episode, right? What a great setup. Ah! Love it! Love it! Yes, please. So, before we round out, though, I want to make note, because, look, here's the thing. This has been, for all intents and purposes, a very contained core, where things have happened in a very relatively small space. So if we look at this, we had in episode 1, 2 was getting the gang together. So we've got all that going on. Episode 3 was literally exposition ex machina of the Culling Games. Episode 4 was Maki. Maki, last time we saw her was episode 4. She's been out getting lots of kills. Episode 5 and 6 was literally being like Yuji and Hikari and that whole saga. So framing that, now we got, again, the gang all together. Going back up to this. Episode 7 was a setup episode to get Higuruma and Reggie all set up. Then we had episodes 8 and 9, which were Higuruma's intro, which were amazing. And now episode 10, and I would argue episode 11, are going to be Reggie versus Megumi, which is great. I like that we've had a Yuji centered double feature, and now we're getting a Megumi centered double feature, which is great. Love that. And then episode 12 is going to be setup. More. What I'm getting at is a lot of this core has been just setup of the culling games, setup of everybody getting together, setup of what the culling games are, setup of Higuruma and Reggie, setup, and then Hashimo is out there somewhere. So what I'm saying is there is a lot of things that we have not accounted for at all in this season. Yuta, where he been? Angel, where are they? Hashimo, nope. Panda and all them, they've disappeared. Hikari's with them. It's just lots of things being set up, but we're micro-focusing on small, like we've had Yuji episodes and Megumi episodes. We're micro-focusing on these little things, which is great, but I'm also like, there's a lot we don't have accounted for. So either we're going to get through a lot of that. Like, I was thinking in this core we would have Choso and Yuki come back again. Nope, haven't seen them. They're still with Tengen. So I'm like, there's so much that's not been accounted for that we haven't even touched base on. And we know next week is going to be Megumi versus Reggie. It's going to be. So then we obviously can get through all of it in episode 12. So 12 is going to be a setup episode probably too. It's a lot. That's a lot. It's a lot to worry about. I don't know how to feel about that. So, but yeah. So next week we're going to have the penultimate episode. Should be a fun time. I'm all excited to see Megumi versus Reggie. That should be a blast. But in the meantime, I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. Please let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this reaction, the discussion, the episode itself. Takaba? What's this wild acid trip fever dream? And yeah, in the meantime, I am excited. I will probably ask the moderators when I can watch the OP, if I can watch it next week. Because at this point it's like, have we seen everything? We'll see. So in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week yourselves. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 3.